Hey everyone, it's Gabe here. Thanks for watching another episode of Quick Quadversations. I'm your host, Gabe Trujillo. For this episode, I'm being joined by my friend and power soccer extraordinaire, Barb Peacock. Barb, thanks for joining us today.
Glad to be here.
Awesome. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. First, tell us a little bit about what exactly is power soccer.
Power soccer it's an awesome sport, number one. It's a soccer version played that allows people with power wheelchairs, so the more severely disabled among us, to be able to actually play a team sport. It's played on a basketball court with a ball that's about 13 inches in diameter, so bigger than a regular soccer ball, but it's constructed like a futsal ball, so it's a little heavier than a soccer ball. There's 4 on a side. It's got a lot of rules similar to soccer, but obviously the goalie can't throw the ball, and so there's adaptations, but it's very exciting. It's played in many countries all over the world, and it's a great sport to watch and to play.
So how did you get started with the sport of power soccer?
I got started back in the 90s. We had a team here in Arizona called the Arizona Heat that we were like the 8th team in the country in the U.S. to play. It started it was developed in Western Canada in about 1980. Some guys that were too disabled to play the fairly new sport of quad rugby, but still wanted that adrenaline rush and wanted to play a team sport, developed power soccer sort of after quad rugby, but with power chairs. You could, pick and roll and shove other people in their chairs, kind of, as long as the ball was in the middle, you could shove them wherever you wanted to. And so they developed it in Western Canada, and it came down the coast of California. And there were about 7 teams, a couple in San Diego, or a couple in San Francisco area, 1 in LA, 1 in San Diego. And then we became the 8th team in the country to get it. And we started having a tournament every year. I think our team started in about 91, and I started with the team in 93. I was conned into coaching and have never left. It's kind of addictive. So, but we started having a tournament every year after the season of the 8 teams, and we'd invite a couple of Canadian teams too. And we'd discuss the rules and have these tournaments every year in May or June. And then we started deciding that we would discuss the rules in August before we played. So we in Mesa would host a rules committee meeting prior to the season, set the rules, then play by those rules, and come back in late May, early June for a tournament. And out of that, our organization kind of grew, and then we changed the whole sport and went international. So.
Now, I joined the sport way back in 2005, and it's definitely a lot different than it is now. When I first joined, I was using just my everyday wheelchair. We used plastic guards, so we did whatever we could as far as figuring out what materials to use for those guards, but they just strapped on to my leg rest, and we just dribbled that giant ball, like you said, around other players. What was that like for other people that you joined or had play? Like somebody who hasn't necessarily played a sport and then gotten to participate in something like this?
It's been my experience over the 30 years that we've had a team here, that when a new person comes to observe the sport, to see, because it's really hard to find people to come and try it out, because you look at somebody in a power wheelchair, and I mean, I've tracked people down on the street and said, hey, would you like to play a sport? And they look at me like I'm crazy and say, I can't do anything, I'm in this chair, and I have to beg, borrow, and steal to get them there. once you can get them in the gym and get them watching the game, then they really want to try it. And once you get them to try it, they want to keep playing. So, and it's really great to see it's just like an opening up of personality that they have this opportunity to be with peers and people with similar abilities and to play a sport, a team sport.
I can definitely attest to that. I know when I first started, I really didn't think much of the sport. Like, I wasn't really aware of it until I stumbled across it just by happenstance. And I enjoyed playing soccer before I became a wheelchair user. And I just thought I wouldn't be playing sports again at all anymore once I became someone who uses a wheelchair. So to find this sport, like the minute I put on one of those plastic guards, like I immediately fell in love with it. And like it's an actual sport. Like, there's rules and you compete, you play to win games. And the minute I started dribbling that ball around on a chair, like I was hooked, and like I wanted to learn more and figure out how to be good at it and all that. And so I can definitely attest to those of like, well, what is this? It's just a place for you to go and use your wheelchair and get around. But it's an actual sport that people don't realize, that once you start getting into it, and it's a full-fledged sport, it's competitive. It's got like Paralympic aspirations and all that. So, I mean, it's an incredible sport, and I just think people need to realize that as soon as you try it out, it's fun to try it and to do, and I think it's great.
And there's another aspect to it, being a teacher of people with physical disabilities forever. I noticed with students, quite often, if you've got a 6-year-old, a 10-year-old, whatever, who uses a wheelchair in a regular school setting, they're excluded from PE, or they have separate PE. And they don't, physical education courses give us a lot more than health and fitness. They give you those team building skills and different structures that you need when you're out in the workforce, that if you've just been treated as an individual your whole life, you're not going to fit in the workplace very well. So I've noticed that it gives kids that ability to learn to be part of a team, which has a whole other aspect to it too. So yeah, it's very addictive. It's a great sport.
Now, for someone who doesn't necessarily play the sport, you've still been involved with the sport for over 3 decades. What's it like watching it, just as like a spectator or a coach or a volunteer? What's it like watching it?
Well, obviously, as a coach, I'm extremely biased. I've had a few yellow cards thrown at me. The refs are all horrible. But with my international involvement, I get to watch teams play each other who I don't have a buy-in to, and I can watch the sport and watch how it's played, and it's just incredible how it's evolved over the years. And some of the athletes that play this sport are incredible. The way they handle the ball and use the team, and it's really fun to watch. Really fun to watch. I hope it gets to be a Paralympic sport, because the Paralympics are into having spectators and crowds involved. And right now, the only Paralympic sport that a person who's severely involved, outside of quad rugby, which is very exciting, and wheelchair basketball, that's exciting too, but I'm sorry, I'm kind of prejudiced towards power soccer. For the severely involved who use a power wheelchair, the only Paralympic sport right now would be bocce. And bocce, when you watch it, you have to be silent. There's no cheering crowds and the yelling and so yeah, power soccer is a lot more exciting.
Now, you mentioned the evolution of power soccer. Like I said, when I first started, we just used my everyday wheelchair, and if it broke, we had to fix it. And that was always a big concern for not just myself, but other people. Like, well, I have this expensive wheelchair. It's $20,000, $30,000. And so me playing a sport where there's a very real possibility that it could break kind of would deter me. I mean, I didn't let it get in the way of me playing, but you could definitely understand the concern for people who are hesitant to join. But now with the way the game has evolved, there's actual wheelchairs designed specifically for the sport itself. What has this chair done to the sport, and how has it helped it grow?
When everybody plays in the same chair, which is designed specifically for power soccer, it takes the chair out of the game, and it makes it the ability of the player. How fast do you think? How can you maneuver that chair? How fast you can predict where that ball is going to go. It puts it all on the player and takes the chair out of the sport. So it truly makes it the value of the athlete himself that makes the sport and makes the play, makes the teams, one team better than another team. So yeah, it's fabulous. In the last World Cup we had, out of the 10 teams that came with 8-10 players on a team, there was only one player who didn't have the Strikeforce chair, and they were a goalie, and you really couldn't notice the difference. But to see everybody from all these countries play in the exact same chair, it totally erased the chair. Before that, it was who could buy the quickest, the fastest, the most active chair, and this just takes it all out, makes it on the athlete themselves to perform.
Now, in the 15 years I've been playing, I've definitely had a ton of awesome memories. By far, the best memory that I've had is, of course, when my team won the national championship in 2014. It was at the highest conference, the Premier Conference Cup. So we were essentially the #1 team in the country. And we actually won the tournament on my birthday, which was probably one of the best birthday presents that I've ever got. That being said, what are some of the most awesome memories that you've had after watching power soccer for over 3 decades?
Yeah, that obviously is top #1. I love it when a team that I'm involved with wins. Let's see. Of course, internationally, there's been 3 World Cups, and the USA has won 2 of them. That was pretty fabulous, especially since France really thought they were going to win. That's a good question, Gabe. Every time I go to a national tournament, it's special. We typically in the past have taken at least one. We've gone every year to the national tournament, except last year, obviously, when there wasn't one. We typically have taken 2 teams, and they've played in different conference levels. But to see their success has been really great.
What's your
us winning the national championship? That was the best.
What was your advice, or what would be your advice to kids who use an electric wheelchair, haven't really given a thought of playing a sport or an adaptive sport, and have the ability to play power soccer? What advice would you give them to jump in and get started?
Come visit the gym. Come see us play. Watch. There's plenty of videos out there on YouTube of full games, or there's one that's the top 10 spin kicks. Plenty of things to watch. The most difficult is to get them in the gym and get them to come and see. That's the most difficult part. So I would just tell them to come on down.
Now, if they are
start up again.
If they are interested in joining, where could they find more info? Whether it's here in Arizona, or if they're watching this from some other state, how could they get involved locally?
They can go to the United States Power Soccer Association website, and that lists in there. You can see where all the teams that belong to USPSA, and find a team close to them. The contact information for coaches and phone numbers and stuff is all included in there. So, yeah.
And they're not just looking for just athletes, right? Like we can have volunteers or referees.
Volunteers, coaches, referees. We're always looking for referees, good referees, you know. Yeah, always looking for volunteers. Need coaches. Teams need support with able-bodied people, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, power soccer has been a godsend to me. I know when I first started, I didn't really think much of it, but now I can't imagine not playing power soccer every year anymore. It's just been an amazing experience. It's shown that I can still have that competitive spirit, even as a wheelchair user. I can still be a part of a team and play sports, even though I'm not all able-bodied as I was before I got sick. But it's just been an amazing time, and I've met so many cool people, whether it's you or my other teammates or coaches, and just seeing everybody and learning all the different skill sets and skills that you need to be competitive, and especially in today's power soccer landscape. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'll continue to encourage anybody else who is in my similar situation to at least give it a try. Jump in a chair, dribble the ball around, and I dare them not to get hooked on the sport the minute they get in one of those chairs and drive it around. So I appreciate you jumping on the call and chatting with about power soccer for a little bit.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Barb.
Thank you.